Hello everyone. This time I am going to present the module 8 and 9. So the first question is define the following. So first is the culture. Culture has a significant influence of communication style. So people generally react to how we talk rather than what we say. This analysis investigates the link between culture and cross-cultural communication style, as well as the interdependence of culture and communication. Next is melting pot philosophy. The melting pot philosophy is a monoculture metaphor for a heterogeneous society becoming more homogeneous with different elements, so melting together with a common culture. An alternative is a homogeneous society becoming more heterogeneous through the influx of foreign elements with different cultural backgrounds, which has the potential to cause disharmony within the previous culture. Okay, next, cultural pluralism. Cultural pluralism is described as the sociological state in which minority groups within a community can retain their different cultural identities, beliefs, and practices as long as they adhere to the rules and values of the larger society. Next is co-cultures. So it is a group whose values, beliefs, or behaviors set it apart from the larger culture which it is a part of and with which it shares many similarities. Cultures may comprise many subsets, and those who add these co-cultures may thrive within them. For example, many world cities have a Chinatown. Next is marginalized group. Marginalized communities are those excluded from mainstream social, economic, educational, and or cultural life. Examples of marginalized populations include, but are not limited to, groups excluded due to race, gender, identity, sexual orientation, age, physical ability, language, and or immigration status. Next is assimilation. Organizational assimilation is the process by which an intern or new employee engages in communication, flow, and practices to reduce uncertainty, gain information, and become accustomed to workplace structure by learning from the inside is termed organizational assimilation. Next is accommodation, a general theoretical framework of both interpersonal and intergroup communicative behavior during social interaction and what social consequences result from this adjustment. Separation. So it establish boundaries and make them clear. Start off by discussing your preferred method of communication and how often the two of you will discuss issues. Ethnocentrism. So it is the experience of seeing one's own culture as superior to other cultures. So it is an element of intercultural communication that has the potential to greatly affect how one communicates. Next is globalization. The study of global communication examines how information is exchanged across geographical and social divides, as well as how communication both impacts and is influenced by cultures, politics, media, economies, health, and relationships in the age of globalization. Next is multiculturalist. So it focuses on the dynamics of communication across culture. It explores not only what happens when people of two different cultures meet, but also what happens when people form a variety of cultures and ethnicities come together in one organization, community, or country. Diversity. Diversity in communications is more about recognizing that different people have unique points of view and life experiences based on their backgrounds. Next is culturally confused. Communicators who fail to realize that persons from different cultures may not look, think, or act as they themselves to run the risk of having those with whom they interact judge them to be insensitive, ignorant, or culturally confused. Next is cultural imperialism. So, cultural imperialism theory states that Western nations dominate the media around the world, which in return has a powerful effect on third world cultures by and imposing them Western views and therefore destroying their native cultures. Next is intercultural communication. It involves the sharing of information across different cultures and social groups, including individuals with different religious, social, ethnic, and educational backgrounds. Interracial communication. So it is a genre of communication study that embraces the interactions between people representing different historical races. Next is interethnic communication. So it defined as the communication of the representatives of different ethnic communities in situations of prolonged cohabitation in the same society and citizens of one state. Next is international communication. International communication, also known as global communication studies or transnational communication, is the activity of communicating across international borders. So the expanding effects and consequences of globalization necessitated that the necessity for worldwide communication. Lastly, intracultural communication. So, meaningful interaction between members of the same social group or groups with comparable cultural characteristics. Okay, next is compare and contrast the following. So, first is individualism and collectivism. Collectivism prioritizes group cohesion over individual pursuits, and it sees long-term relationships as essential since it promotes group goals. On the other hand, individualism focuses on human independence and freedom. It is generally against external interferences regarding personal choices. Next is high context communication cultures and low context communication cultures. So high context culture are those that communicate in ways that are implicit and rely heavily on context. In contrast, low context cultures rely on explicit verbal communication. High context culture are collectivist, value interpersonal relationships, communication. um, and have members that form stable, close relationships. Okay, next is high and low power distance culture. So, a culture that gives great difference to a person of authority is a high power distance culture. And a culture that values the equal treatment of everyone is a low power distance culture. Lastly is the masculine culture and feminine culture. So in a masculine culture, men are expected to be assertive, competitive, and focused on material success. Women are expected to be nurturing and focused on people and quality of life. In contrast, um, feminine culture or feminine society is one where gender roles are more fluid. Okay, last is I'll be discussing the kinds of problems that culturally confused face. So in sociology and cultural studies, cultural dissonance is a sense of discord, disharmony, confusion, or conflict experienced by people in the midst of change in their cultural environment. The changes are often unexpected, unexplained, or not understandable due to various types of cultural dynamics. So that's all for Module 8 and 9. Thank you.